The dust kicked up from the road as Catherine Grace stood behind the bar of her father's inn, watching the last rays of July sunlight filter through the windows, knowing that tomorrow her entire life would be auctioned off to the highest bidder. It was 1882 in Julian, California, a gold mining town nestled in the Cuyamaca Mountains where desperate men still searched for fortune, and her father had just made the worst decision of his life. Catherine's hands trembled as she wiped down the wooden counter, her dark auburn hair pulled back in a practical bun that did nothing to hide the fear in her hazel eyes. She was 22 years old, had helped run the Julian Inn since her mother died 5 years ago, and had never imagined her father would stoop to such a low point. But gambling debts had a way of making men do terrible things, and Walter Grace owed nearly $3,000 to some very dangerous people in San Diego. The solution, as her father had drunkenly explained 2 weeks ago, was to hold a bidding event. Any man with money could bid for Catherine's hand in marriage, and the winner would get a wife while her father would get enough money to pay off his debts and keep the inn. The very thought made her stomach turn, but what choice did she have? If her father did not pay, they would both end up dead or worse. "Another whiskey, Miss Grace," called out a grizzled miner from the corner table. Catherine forced a smile and poured the amber liquid into a glass, bringing it over on a tray. The man looked at her with something between pity and hunger, and she knew he would probably be at the bidding tomorrow. Most of the men in this town would be. The door to the inn swung open, and Catherine looked up from her work to see a stranger walk in. He was tall, probably 6 feet or so, with dark brown hair that touched his collar and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore dusty trail clothes, leather chaps over denim pants, a dark shirt, and a weathered hat that he removed as he entered. A gun belt hung low on his hips, and he moved with the easy confidence of a man who knew how to handle himself. "Help you?" Catherine asked, trying to keep her voice steady as the stranger approached the bar. "Room for the night," he said, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate in her chest. "And information if you have got it." Catherine pulled out the registry book, dipping a pen in ink. "Name?" "Lucas Parker," he said, and something about the way he looked at her made Catherine feel like he could see right through her brave facade to the terrified woman beneath. "I am looking for work. Heard there might be some ranches hiring hands around here." "There might be," Catherine said, writing his name in careful script. "The Thornton Ranch north of town usually needs help, and old Mr. Peterson sometimes hires seasonal workers. Room is $2 a night, includes breakfast." Lucas pulled out the coins and placed them on the counter. Their fingers brushed as she reached for the money, and Catherine felt an unexpected jolt at the contact. She quickly pulled her hand back, cheeks warming. "You all right, miss?" Lucas asked, his gray eyes studying her with concern. "Fine," Catherine lied, handing him a key. "Room 7. Top of the stairs and to the left. Breakfast is at dawn." Lucas took the key but did not move away from the bar. "Seems like something is troubling you. I am a stranger, I know, but sometimes strangers are the best people to talk to. We do not have stakes in local affairs." Catherine almost laughed at that. If only he knew. "Just tired," she said. "It has been a long day." Before Lucas could respond, the inn door burst open again, and Catherine's heart sank as she recognized the 3 men who strutted in. The leader was Cyrus Morrison, a wealthy claim owner who had been the most vocal about his intention to bid on her tomorrow. He was in his mid-40s, had a cruel mouth and mean eyes, and Catherine would rather die than marry him. But he had money, and that was all that mattered to her father. "Catherine, my dear," Cyrus said, his voice oily with false affection. "Just wanted to stop by and remind you to wear something pretty tomorrow. A man wants his purchase to look appealing." Catherine's hands clenched into fists beneath the bar. "I am not your dear, and I am not a purchase." "Not yet," Cyrus said with a laugh that made her skin crawl. "But come tomorrow afternoon you will be mine. I have saved up quite a bit, and I do not think anyone in this town can outbid me. We will have a good life together, you and I. You will keep my house, warm my bed, and give me sons." What more could a woman want? Lucas, who had been standing quietly at the bar, turned slowly to face Cyrus. "The lady does not seem interested in your attention," he said calmly. "Might want to move along." Cyrus looked Lucas up and down with contempt. "And who might you be, stranger?" "Another drifter passing through. This does not concern you." "I am making it my concern," Lucas said, his hand resting casually near his gun. It was not a threat, not exactly, but the implication was clear. The tension in the room ratcheted up several notches. The other patrons had gone quiet, watching the confrontation with interest. Cyrus's two companions shifted their positions, hands moving toward their own weapons. "Gentlemen, please," Catherine said quickly, not wanting violence in her father's inn. "Mr. Morrison, I will see you tomorrow at the bidding. Until then, I have work to do." Cyrus glared at Lucas for a long moment before finally nodding. "Tomorrow, then. Dream of me, Catherine." He and his men left, and the normal buzz of conversation slowly resumed. Lucas turned back to Catherine, his expression concerned. "Bidding?" he asked quietly. Catherine's composure finally cracked. Tears welled up in her eyes, and she quickly looked away, not wanting this stranger to see her cry. "It is nothing," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Just local business." "Does not sound like nothing," Lucas said gently. "Sounds like something serious." Catherine took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. There was something about this man, this stranger who had just defended her without even knowing her situation, that made her want to tell him everything. Maybe it was the kindness in his eyes, or maybe she was just desperate for someone, anyone, to understand. "My father has gambling debts," she said quietly, so only Lucas could hear. $3,000 to some men in San Diego who will kill him if he does not pay. So he has arranged a bidding tomorrow. Any man who wants to marry me can bid, and whoever offers the most money gets me. My father uses the money to pay his debts. Lucas's jaw tightened, a muscle jumping in his cheek. "That is not legal," he said. "You cannot sell a person." "It is not slavery," Catherine said bitterly. "It is marriage, perfectly legal. I will go willingly to whoever wins, say my vows, and my father will be saved. It does not matter what I want or what kind of man wins me. All that matters is the money." "What do you want?" Lucas asked, and the question was so unexpected that Catherine actually looked up at him. "I want to be free," she whispered. "I want to choose my own life, marry for love or not marry at all. I want to keep running this inn, take care of travelers, maybe save enough to buy my own place someday. But that is not going to happen. Tomorrow I will belong to whoever has the deepest pockets, and that will probably be Cyrus Morrison, and my life will be over." Lucas was quiet for a long moment, his eyes never leaving her face. "What if someone else won?" he asked. Catherine shook her head. "The next highest bidders are probably just as bad. Silas Crenshaw is 60 years old and already buried 3 wives. Jacob Harding has hands like a snake and thinks women are property. Take your pick of the men in this town, and you will find maybe 2 who would treat me with any decency, and neither of them has enough money to win." "I am not from this town," Lucas said slowly, as if an idea was forming in his mind. Catherine looked at him, confused. "What does that matter?" "How much do you think the winning bid will be?" Lucas asked instead of answering. "Cyrus has been bragging he will bid $1,500, Catherine said. "That is more than most people here see in 5 years. Lucas nodded slowly, his expression thoughtful. "And if someone bid more, Say 2,000. Would your father's rules let a stranger bid? Catherine's heart began to pound. You cannot be serious. You just rode into town. You do not even know me. I know enough, Lucas said. I know you are being forced into something you do not want. I know that you deserve better than being treated like livestock. And I know that I have some money saved up from years of working ranches and saving every penny. Why would you do this? Catherine asked, her voice barely a whisper. Why would you spend your money on a complete stranger? Lucas smiled, and it transformed his face from handsome to something that made Catherine's breath catch. Let us just say I have a weakness for helping people in trouble. Besides, I am not buying you. I am buying your freedom. I do not understand, Catherine said, confusion and hope warring in her chest. If I win the bidding tomorrow, Lucas explained, we will get married, sure. But then you are free to leave if you want. Go wherever you like, do whatever you want. I am not looking for a wife who was bought. I am just looking to help. Catherine stared at this stranger who had walked into her life less than an hour ago and was now offering her a way out of her nightmare. You would do that. Spend all your money and ask nothing in return. I would, Lucas said simply. What if I did not want to leave? The words were out of Catherine's mouth before she could stop them. What if I wanted to stay here and run the inn? Then you stay and run the inn, Lucas said. Your choice. That is the whole point. Catherine felt tears sliding down her cheeks, but for the first time in weeks, they were not tears of despair. I do not even know what to say. This is the kindest thing anyone has ever offered to do for me. Say yes, Lucas said, his gray eyes warm. Say you will let me help you. Yes, Catherine whispered. Yes, please, thank you. Lucas nodded, satisfied. Then I will see you tomorrow at the bidding, where whatever you want, not what that Cyrus fellow demanded. This is your life, Catherine Grace, and starting tomorrow you get to live it on your own terms. That night, Catherine barely slept. She lay in her small room above the inn, listening to the sounds of the town settling down for the night, and thought about the stranger who had appeared like something out of a dream. Lucas Parker. She repeated the name to herself, testing how it felt. She knew nothing about him except that he was kind, brave, and willing to spend his life savings to free a woman he had just met. It was too good to be true. It had to be. Men did not do things like that without wanting something in return. And yet, when she remembered the way Lucas had looked at her, the gentleness in his eyes when he had asked what she wanted, Catherine found herself believing him. Maybe there were still good men in the world. Maybe Lucas Parker was one of them. The next morning dawned bright and clear, the July sun promising another hot day in the mountains. Catherine dressed in her best calico dress, a soft blue that brought out her eyes, and braided her hair over one shoulder. If this was going to be the day her life changed, she wanted to look like herself, not like someone trying to appeal to men at a bidding. The common room of the inn was already busy when she came downstairs. Her father, Walter Grace, was behind the bar looking haggard and anxious. He was a tall man who had once been strong, but years of drinking and bad decisions had worn him down to a shadow of what he used to be. "Catherine," he said when he saw her, "the bidding is set for noon in the town square. I have already spread the word. Should be a good turnout." "A good turnout," Catherine repeated flatly, "like it is a horse race." "Now, Catherine, you know this is the only way," Walter said defensively. "I owe money to dangerous men. This solves everything. You will get a husband, I will get out of debt. It is a win for everyone." "Except me," Catherine said. "But I suppose my feelings do not matter." "You are young," Walter said, waving his hand dismissively. "You will grow to care for whoever wins you. That is how marriage works. Your mother did not love me at first either, and we managed just fine." Catherine bit back the retort that her mother had been miserable for years before she died, worn down by hard work and disappointment. There was no point arguing with her father now. By tonight, this would all be over one way or another. Lucas came down for breakfast, and Catherine served him eggs and biscuits and coffee without saying much. She was too nervous to make conversation, and Lucas seemed to understand, eating quietly and giving her encouraging looks when their eyes met. As noon approached, the town square began to fill with people. Word of the bidding had spread throughout Julian, and it seemed like every man with money and many without had come to watch or participate. Catherine stood on a wooden platform that had been hastily constructed for the occasion, feeling like she might be sick. Her father stood beside her, and a lawyer from San Diego named Mr. Henderson would be conducting the actual bidding. Catherine scanned the crowd, looking for Lucas. She finally spotted him standing near the back, his hat pulled low, watching everything with those intense gray eyes. Just seeing him there gave her courage. "Gentlemen," Mr. Henderson called out, his voice carrying across the square. "We are here today for a most unusual auction. Miss Catherine Grace, a fine young woman of good character and excellent domestic skills, is being offered in marriage to the highest bidder. Her father, Mr. Walter Grace, will use the proceeds to settle his debts, and the winner will receive a legal marriage to Miss Grace, performed this very afternoon. Do we have an understanding of the terms?" There was a murmur of agreement from the crowd. Catherine felt like she was going to faint. "Excellent," Mr. Henderson said. "Then let us begin the bidding. Do I hear an opening bid?" $300, called out a voice Catherine did not recognize. $500, called another. $750, said Silas Crenshaw, the old man who had already buried 3 wives. The bidding continued, climbing higher and higher. Catherine's heart sank as she watched men casually throw out numbers that represented her entire worth in their eyes. It was degrading and humiliating, and she had to remind herself that Lucas was there, that he had a plan, that this would all be over soon. $1,400, called Cyrus Morrison, his voice smug. "And I do not think anyone here can top that." There was a pause. Catherine held her breath. $1,450, said Jacob Harding, the man with snake hands. $1,500, Cyrus countered immediately. Another pause. Catherine looked at Lucas, who was watching carefully, waiting for the right moment. $1,500 going once, Mr. Henderson called. "Do I hear 1,600? $1,600, Lucas said clearly, his voice cutting through the crowd. Everyone turned to look at him. Cyrus's face went red with anger. "Who the hell are you?" he demanded. "A bidder," Lucas said calmly. "That is all you need to know." $1,600, Mr. Henderson confirmed. "Do I hear 17? $1,700, Cyrus said through gritted teeth. $1,800, Lucas countered without hesitation. The crowd was murmuring now, excited by the competition. Catherine could barely breathe. Did Lucas really have enough money to beat Cyrus? $1,900, Cyrus said, his voice tight with fury. $2,000, Lucas said, and the crowd gasped. Cyrus stared at Lucas with pure hatred. $2,100. $2,200, Lucas said. $2,300, Cyrus countered. Lucas paused, and Catherine's heart nearly stopped. That was too much. No one had that kind of money, not even Cyrus, and certainly not a traveling cowboy who just rode into town yesterday. $2,300 going once, Mr. Henderson called. Catherine felt despair washing over her. It had been a beautiful dream, but reality was setting in. She was going to marry Cyrus Morrison after all. $2,300 going twice, Mr. Henderson said. Lucas locked eyes with Catherine across the crowd, and she saw determination in his face that made her want to cry. $3,000, Lucas said, his voice ringing out clear and strong. Cash money to be paid immediately after the ceremony. The crowd erupted in shocked exclamations. Even Mr. Henderson looked stunned. Cyrus's face went from red to purple. You are lying, Cyrus said. No drifter has that kind of money. I am not a drifter, Lucas said calmly. I am a rancher's son from Montana. I have been working and saving for 15 years. The money is real and I can pay it right now if needed. $3,000, Mr. Henderson repeated, his voice awed. That is a considerable sum. Mr. Morrison, do you wish to counter? Cyrus looked like he wanted to murder someone. 3,100, he ground out. 3,200, Lucas said without missing a beat. This is insane, Cyrus shouted. No woman is worth this much money. Then stop bidding, Lucas suggested, and several people in the crowd laughed. Cyrus glared at Lucas for a long moment, clearly trying to decide if the stranger was bluffing. Finally, he shook his head. I am out, he said bitterly. Let the fool have her. He will regret it soon enough. $3,200 going once, Mr. Henderson called, his voice excited now. Going twice. Sold to the gentleman in the back. Sir, your name? Lucas Parker, Lucas said, making his way through the crowd to the platform. Catherine watched him approach, hardly able to believe this was really happening. He had done it. He had actually done it. She was free from Cyrus, free from all of them. Lucas climbed up onto the platform and stood beside her. Up close, she could see the determination in his face, but also something else. Nervousness, maybe, or hope. Mr. Parker, do you have the funds to complete this transaction? Mr. Henderson asked. I do, Lucas said. He pulled out a leather pouch from inside his jacket and began counting out bills. Catherine watched in amazement as he laid out stack after stack of money, clearly the savings of many years of hard work. When he was done, there were $3,200 on the table. Walter Grace's eyes were huge as he stared at the money. That is more than I needed, he said, his voice greedy. That is enough to pay my debts and have plenty left over. Then everyone is happy, Lucas said, though his tone suggested he found nothing about this situation happy. The marriage ceremony will take place immediately, Mr. Henderson said. I am authorized to perform legal marriages in the state of California. Miss Grace, Mr. Parker, please join hands. Catherine's hand was trembling as she placed it in Lucas's much larger one. His hand was warm and calloused from hard work, and he held hers gently, as if she were something precious. The ceremony was brief and businesslike. Catherine barely heard the words, too overwhelmed by everything that was happening. When Mr. Henderson pronounced them husband and wife, Lucas squeezed her hand gently. You can kiss your bride, Mr. Henderson said with a smile. Lucas looked at Catherine, a question in his eyes. She nodded slightly, and he leaned down to press a soft, chaste kiss to her lips. It was brief and respectful, but Catherine felt it all the way to her toes. Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Parker, Mr. Henderson said, handing Lucas a marriage certificate. The crowd applauded, though Cyrus and his friends had already stormed off. Catherine's father was counting the money, barely paying attention to his daughter. Catherine felt a surge of anger and sadness. This was her wedding day, and her father cared more about the cash than about her happiness or well-being. Lucas seemed to sense her emotions. Come on, he said quietly. Let us get out of here. He led her away from the platform, through the crowd and back toward the inn. Catherine was vaguely aware of people congratulating them, of curious looks and whispered conversations, but she could not focus on any of it. She had just gotten married to a complete stranger. Her life had changed forever in the space of an hour. When they reached the inn, Lucas led her upstairs to his room. It was small and simple, with a single bed, a washstand, and a chair by the window. Lucas closed the door behind them and then immediately stepped back, giving her space. You are safe, he said gently. I want you to know that. I meant what I said yesterday. This marriage is on your terms. I am not going to force anything on you that you do not want. Catherine sank down onto the chair, her legs suddenly too weak to hold her. "You just spent $3,200 on me," she said, her voice shaking. "That was everything you had, was it not?" "Most of it," Lucas admitted. "I have a little left for supplies and such." "Why?" Catherine asked, tears streaming down her face now. "Why would you do that for someone you do not even know?" Lucas sat down on the edge of the bed, his expression serious. "I have a sister," he said quietly. "Rebecca. She is 2 years younger than me. When I was 20 and she was 18, our parents arranged a marriage for her to a wealthy man in our town. He was cruel, Catherine. He hurt her, treated her like property, and there was nothing any of us could do about it because she was his wife, legal and binding." "Oh God," Catherine whispered. "Rebecca died 3 years into that marriage," Lucas continued, his voice rough with old pain. "The doctor said it was influenza, but I always wondered. She had bruises that influenza did not explain. And I have had to live with the guilt every day since then, knowing I should have done something, should have stopped that marriage somehow." "It was not your fault," Catherine said instinctively. "Maybe not," Lucas said. "But I swore after she died that if I ever had the chance to help another woman in a similar situation, I would do it, no matter the cost. When I heard about your situation yesterday, I knew this was that chance. So yes, I spent my savings. And no, I do not regret it. You are alive and free, and that is worth more than any amount of money." Catherine stood up and crossed the small space between them. Acting on impulse, she wrapped her arms around Lucas, hugging him tightly. After a moment of surprise, his arms came around her, holding her as she cried against his shoulder. "Thank you," she sobbed. "Thank you for saving me. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for being the kind of man who would do something like this." Lucas held her until her tears subsided, his hand gently rubbing her back in a soothing motion. When she finally pulled away, wiping her eyes, he gave her a soft smile. "So," he said, "what do you want to do now? You are free, Catherine Parker. The world is open to you." Catherine laughed shakily at the use of her new name. "I do not even know," she admitted. "I have spent the last 2 weeks thinking I would be trapped in a terrible marriage, and now suddenly I have choices again. It is overwhelming." "Start small," Lucas suggested. "What do you want to do today?" "I want to stay here," Catherine said. "I want to keep running the inn. My father may be a drunk and a gambler, but this place is my home. I am good at running it. The guests like me. I do not want to lose that." "Then you stay and run the inn," Lucas said. "What about your father?" "Will he make trouble? He has his money now," Catherine said bitterly. "I doubt he will care much what I do, although—" She paused, thinking. "Actually, he will probably expect me to leave with my new husband. If I stay, he might try to keep controlling things. What if I stay too?" Lucas asked. "At least for a while. I can help around the inn, do repairs, handle troublesome guests, that sort of thing. And my presence will make it clear that you are under my protection. Your father and anyone else will have to go through me to cause problems for you." Catherine looked at him, this man who had appeared out of nowhere and turned her life upside down in the best possible way. "You would do that. Stay here and help me." "I need work anyway," Lucas said with a shrug. "Might as well be here, unless you would rather I leave." "I meant what I said about giving you freedom. That includes freedom from me if that is what you want." "No," Catherine said quickly. "I do not want you to leave. We are married now. Where would you sleep? This room only has 1 bed and my room is even smaller." Lucas glanced at the bed and then back at her. "I can sleep on the floor or get another room, whatever makes you comfortable." "That seems silly," Catherine said, her cheeks warming. "We are married. It would look strange if we did not share a room. People would talk." "Let them talk," Lucas said. "Your comfort is more important than gossip." Catherine took a deep breath. "What if we shared the room but you took the bed and I took the floor? Just until we figure things out. I am not letting you sleep on the floor, Lucas said firmly. If we are sharing this room, I take the floor, or we both use the bed with you on one side and me on the other, properly dressed and with plenty of space between us. Your choice. The idea of sharing a bed with this man, this stranger who was now her husband, should have terrified Catherine. Instead, she found herself considering it. Lucas had proven himself trustworthy. He had saved her, spent his fortune on her freedom, and asked nothing in return. She could trust him with this too. We can share the bed, she said quietly. But properly, like you said, we are both adults. We can be respectful of each other. Lucas nodded. Then that is what we will do. And Catherine, anytime you change your mind about any of this, you just say the word. This marriage is not a cage. It is supposed to be your freedom, remember. I remember, Catherine said, and for the first time in weeks she felt like she could breathe. The rest of that day passed in a strange blur. Catherine returned to work at the inn, serving dinner to guests and managing the rooms. Lucas made himself useful, fixing a broken shutter and helping move some heavy barrels for her father. Walter Grace had taken his money and disappeared to who knew where, probably to pay off his debts, and then spend the rest at the saloon. Catherine found herself watching Lucas as he worked. He was good with his hands, efficient and skilled. He was polite to the guests, friendly but not overly familiar. And every so often he would look over at her and smile, a warm expression that made something flutter in her chest. That night, when the inn finally quieted down and all the guests had retired to their rooms, Catherine and Lucas went upstairs together. It felt strange and intimate, this walk up the stairs side by side, knowing they would be sharing a room, sharing a bed. Catherine changed into her nightgown behind a privacy screen Lucas had thoughtfully set up. And when she emerged, she found that he had changed into simple sleeping clothes as well, and had arranged the bedding so there was a clear division down the middle of the bed. Your side, he said, gesturing to the left side of the bed. I will stay on mine, and if you feel uncomfortable at any point, I can still sleep on the floor. Thank you, Catherine said softly. She climbed into bed, acutely aware of Lucas doing the same on the other side. The bed was not large, and even with the space between them, she could feel his warmth, hear his breathing. Catherine, Lucas said in the darkness. Yes, are you all right? With everything that happened today, Catherine thought about it. Was she all right? Her life had changed completely. She was married to a stranger. Her father had sold her like livestock, and yet somehow she felt more hopeful than she had in months. I am all right, she said. Thanks to you. How are you? You just spent your entire savings. I am all right too, Lucas said. Money can be earned again. But I could not live with myself if I had not helped you when I had the chance. They were quiet for a moment, and then Catherine asked the question that had been bothering her. What happens now? I mean, long term. We are married, but you do not really want a wife, and I did not want a husband. Do we just stay like this forever? I do not know, Lucas admitted. I did not think that far ahead. I just knew I needed to get you out of that situation. We can figure out the rest as we go. Maybe someday we will want to make this marriage real. Or maybe we will decide to part ways as friends. Or maybe something in between. There is no rush to decide. That seems uncertain, Catherine said. Life is uncertain, Lucas replied. But at least now you have choices. That is more than you had yesterday. He was right, and Catherine knew it. She had gone from having no control over her future to having all the control. It was frightening and exhilarating at the same time. Good night, Lucas, she said softly. Good night, Catherine, he replied. Despite the strangeness of the situation, Catherine found herself drifting off to sleep quickly, comforted by the presence of someone she was beginning to trust in a way she had not trusted anyone in a very long time. The days that followed fell into a strange but comfortable rhythm. Catherine ran the inn during the day, managing guests and meals and all the countless details that went into keeping the place running smoothly. Lucas helped with the heavy work, made repairs, and dealt with any troublesome guests. He also started talking to the ranchers in the area about work, bringing in extra money that he insisted on contributing to the inn's expenses. Walter Grace, true to Catherine's predictions, had not cared that she stayed. He had paid off his debts and now spent most of his time drinking at the saloon, leaving the actual operation of the inn to his daughter. Catherine found that she did not mind. She had been running things for years anyway, and now with Lucas's help, it was actually easier than before. But the most surprising part of this new life was how much Catherine found herself enjoying Lucas's company. He was funny in a dry, subtle way that made her laugh when she least expected it. He was thoughtful, always noticing when she was tired or stressed and finding small ways to help. And he was respectful, never pushing boundaries, always asking before doing anything that might make her uncomfortable. They still slept on their respective sides of the bed each night, a careful space between them. But that space had begun to feel less like a barrier and more like a promise that they were taking things at a pace that felt right for both of them. One evening, about 2 weeks after the wedding, Catherine and Lucas sat together on the porch of the inn after the dinner rush had ended. The July night was warm and stars filled the sky above the mountains. Catherine had brought out 2 glasses of lemonade and they sat in companionable silence, watching the town settle in for the night. "Can I ask you something?" Catherine said, breaking the silence. "Anything," Lucas replied. "Do you regret it, spending all that money staying here, tying yourself to me in this place?" Lucas was quiet for a moment, considering. "No," he finally said. "I do not regret it at all. Do you regret marrying me?" "No," Catherine said immediately. "You saved my life, Lucas." "I could never regret that. It is just, we barely know each other. We are married, but we are also strangers." "Then let us fix that," Lucas said, turning to face her. "Ask me anything you want to know. I will answer honestly." Catherine smiled. "All right. Why did you leave Montana?" "You said you were a rancher's son. Why not stay and work your family's ranch?" "After Rebecca died, I could not stay there anymore," Lucas said. "Everything reminded me of her, and my parents were broken by her loss. They blamed themselves, blamed me, blamed each other. The ranch was falling apart along with our family, so when I turned 23, I left. I have been working ranches all over the West for the last 7 years, saving money and trying to figure out what I wanted from life." "Did you figure it out?" Catherine asked. "I am starting to," Lucas said, his gray eyes meeting hers. "Your turn. Why do you love running the inn so much? Most people would see it as hard, thankless work." "Because it is mine," Catherine said simply. "Well, my father owns it, but I am the one who built its reputation. I am the one who made it successful. Every satisfied guest, every good meal, every clean room is a reflection of my work. It makes me feel capable and needed. And I love meeting travelers, hearing their stories, being a part of their journeys even if just for a night." "You are good at it," Lucas said. "I have been watching you with the guests. You have a gift for making people feel welcome." Catherine felt her cheeks warm at the compliment. "Thank you. Can I ask another question?" "As many as you want," Lucas said. "Have you ever been in love?" Catherine asked, then immediately felt embarrassed. "I am sorry, that is too personal." "No, it is all right," Lucas said. "And the answer is no, I have not. I have known women I cared about, but love, never had the time or the situation for it. I was always moving, always working, always focused on saving money and helping my parents when I could. Romance was not exactly a priority." "What about you?" "No," Catherine admitted. There was a boy when I was 16, the blacksmith's son. I thought I loved him, but looking back, I think I just loved the idea of him, of getting out of the inn and starting my own family. But he moved away and I stayed, and I realized I did not actually want to leave. I wanted to build something here. You have, Lucas said. This place is a testament to your hard work. They talked for hours that night, sharing stories and dreams and fears. Catherine learned that Lucas had always wanted to own his own ranch someday. Nothing huge, just a place where he could raise good horses and cattle. Lucas learned that Catherine had always dreamed of expanding the inn, maybe adding more rooms or even opening a restaurant. Why do you not? Lucas asked. Expand, I mean. Money, Catherine said simply. Every spare penny goes to keeping the place running or to my father's debts. There is never anything left over for improvements. There is now, Lucas pointed out. Your father got enough money from our wedding to pay off his debts with plenty left over. Maybe it is time you demanded a share of that money to invest in the business. Catherine shook her head. He will never agree. He thinks running the inn is just women's work. He does not see the value in investing in it. Then maybe it is time the inn had a new owner, Lucas said thoughtfully. What do you mean? Catherine asked. I mean your father clearly does not care about this place. You do. What if we approached him about buying the inn from him? He could take the money and drink himself happy for the rest of his life, and you could own the business you have been building for years. Catherine stared at Lucas, her heart beginning to race. Do you think he would sell? I think he might, Lucas said. Especially if we offered him a good price and guaranteed him a room here for life, so he does not have to find a new place to live. We could talk to a lawyer, make sure everything was legal and binding. We do not have that kind of money, Catherine said, though her mind was already racing with possibilities. We have some, Lucas said. And we could take out a loan for the rest, pay it back with the inn's profits. You said yourself the place does well. With proper management and some improvements, it could do even better. This is crazy, Catherine said, but she was smiling. We have been married 2 weeks and now you want to buy an inn together. Why not? Lucas asked. We are in this together, are we not? I helped you get free from being sold into marriage. Let me help you get free from your father's control too. Let us build something together, Catherine. Something that is ours. Catherine felt tears pricking at her eyes again, but this time they were happy tears. You really are the kindest man I have ever met, she said softly. Or the craziest, Lucas said with a grin. But what do you say? Should we try? Yes, Catherine said, laughing through her tears. Yes, let us try. The next day they approached Walter Grace with their proposal. As Lucas had predicted, he was more than willing to sell. The inn was profitable, but it required actual work, something Walter had been avoiding for years. The idea of getting a large sum of money and still having a place to live without any responsibilities was extremely appealing to him. They settled on a price of $1,800, which would give Walter enough to live comfortably for years if he was careful, and would leave him a room at the inn for life. Lucas and Catherine pooled their remaining money and took out a loan from the bank in town for the rest. By the end of August, they were the proud owners of the Julian Inn. Catherine could hardly believe it. At 22 years old, she owned her own business. Well, she and Lucas owned it together, which felt right somehow. He had made this possible after all. Without him, she would be trapped in a miserable marriage to Cyrus Morrison, not standing in the inn she had just purchased with her husband and business partner. Husband. The word still felt strange in her mind, but less strange every day. Lucas was proving to be an ideal partner in every way. He worked hard, contributed equally to decisions about the inn, and never tried to take control or diminish her role. If anything, he went out of his way to make sure everyone knew Catherine was the one in charge. It was different from how Catherine had always imagined marriage would be. There was no grand romance, no passionate declarations of love, but there was respect, partnership, and a growing affection that felt like something solid and real. They began making improvements to the inn. Lucas built new shutters for all the windows and repaired the sagging porch. Catherine bought new linens for the beds and improved the menu for the meals they served. They painted the exterior of the building, making it look fresh and inviting. They even built a small extension with 2 additional rooms, which Lucas did most of the construction on with help from a few hired workers. The business grew. Word spread that the Julian Inn was under new management and was better than ever. They were soon booked solid most nights, especially when miners struck gold and had money to spend on a decent bed and good food. Catherine and Lucas fell into the habit of spending their evenings together on the porch, talking about the day and planning for the future. Sometimes they played cards or chess. Sometimes they just sat in comfortable silence, enjoying each other's company. The space between them in bed had gradually decreased over the weeks, though they still maintained proper boundaries. Catherine found she slept better with Lucas beside her, his steady breathing a comforting presence in the dark. It was in mid-September, nearly 2 months after their wedding, that something shifted between them. They had been working together all day, managing a full house of guests. Catherine had been in the kitchen, and a pot had slipped from her hands, spilling hot soup down her arm. She had cried out in pain, and Lucas had been there instantly, leading her to the pump and running cold water over the burn. "It is all right," he said gently, his hands steadying hers under the water. "Just keep it in the cold water for a while. It will help." Catherine winced at the pain but did as he said. She was very aware of how close Lucas was standing, how carefully he was examining her burned arm, the concern evident on his face. "I am fine," she said, though her voice shook slightly. "It is just a small burn." "Any burn is serious," Lucas said. "We need to keep it clean and bandaged." He carefully dried her arm with a clean cloth, and then applied a salve he had fetched from their room. His touch was gentle, and Catherine found herself watching his face as he worked, seeing the concentration and care in his expression. "Thank you," she said softly when he finished wrapping her arm in clean bandaging. Lucas looked up at her, and their eyes met. They were standing very close, his hand still gently holding her bandaged arm. Catherine felt her breath catch at the intensity in his gaze. "I worry about you," Lucas said quietly. "Is that all right? I know this is not a traditional marriage, but I find myself caring about your well-being a great deal." "It is more than all right," Catherine said. "I care about you too, Lucas, more than I expected to when this all started." "I need to tell you something," Lucas said, his voice serious. "And I want you to know there is no pressure, no expectation. You are still free to live your life however you want, but I need to be honest with you." "What is it?" Catherine asked, her heart beginning to pound. "I think I am falling in love with you," Lucas said, the words simple and direct. "I did not plan for this to happen. I just wanted to help you, to give you freedom. But over these past 2 months, working beside you, talking with you, sharing a life with you, I have come to care for you deeply. You are brave and strong and kind and beautiful, and being married to you has become the best thing in my life." Catherine felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Lucas, you do not have to say anything," Lucas said quickly. "I just needed you to know. Nothing has to change between us if you do not want it to. We can keep things exactly as they are. I will not pressure you or make things awkward. I just could not keep holding this inside." Catherine reached up with her unbandaged hand and touched Lucas's face, feeling the slight stubble on his jaw. "What if I do not want things to stay the same?" she asked softly. Lucas's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" I think I am falling in love with you too, Catherine said, the words feeling right and true as she spoke them. You are everything I never knew I wanted in a partner. You respect me, you support my dreams, you make me laugh, and you make me feel safe. I know this marriage started as a rescue, but it has become something real to me, something precious. Catherine, Lucas breathed, and then he was pulling her gently into his arms, careful of her injured arm. He held her close, and Catherine wrapped her good arm around him, feeling the solid warmth of him against her. "Can I kiss you?" Lucas asked, pulling back slightly to look at her. "Really kiss you, not just a peck for appearances?" "Yes," Catherine whispered. "Please." Lucas cupped her face in his hands and kissed her with a tenderness that made Catherine's knees weak. It was nothing like the brief, polite kiss they had shared at their wedding. This kiss was deep and genuine, full of all the feelings they had been developing over the past 2 months. Catherine kissed him back, pouring her own emotions into it, letting him know without words that she wanted this, wanted him. When they finally pulled apart, both of them were breathless. Lucas rested his forehead against hers, his hands still cradling her face. "I love you," he said simply. "I know it is fast and maybe it is crazy, but I love you, Catherine Parker." "I love you too," Catherine said, and saying the words out loud felt like freedom. "I love you, Lucas Parker." They stood there in the kitchen, holding each other, and Catherine felt something settle in her heart. This was right. This man, this marriage, this life they were building together. It was all right. That night they crossed the invisible line in their bed, coming together with tender passion and mutual desire. Lucas was gentle and patient, making sure Catherine was comfortable every step of the way. They made love slowly, discovering each other's bodies, learning what brought pleasure and what made the other gasp with delight. Afterward they lay tangled together, Catherine's head resting on Lucas's chest, his arms wrapped securely around her. "That was perfect," Catherine murmured. "You are perfect," Lucas said, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "I cannot believe I got so lucky. I just wanted to help someone in trouble, and I ended up finding the love of my life." "I was terrified that day," Catherine admitted. "Standing on that platform, watching men bid on me like I was livestock. And then you started bidding, and I felt hope for the first time. I did not know you would become everything to me." "We have time now," Lucas said. "All the time in the world to build our life together. No more auctions, no more being forced into things you do not want. Just you and me and the choices we make together." "Together," Catherine agreed, snuggling closer. "I like the sound of that." The months that followed were the happiest of Catherine's life. She and Lucas ran the inn together, continuing to make improvements and grow the business. They became known throughout the region as fair, honest innkeepers who provided excellent service. The Julian Inn was always full, and they began to save money, planning for future expansions. But more than the business success, it was the personal happiness that filled Catherine with joy. She had a partner who loved and respected her, who made her laugh and supported her dreams. Lucas was everything she had never dared to hope for in a husband. They made love regularly now, exploring their passion for each other with growing confidence and delight. Lucas was always attentive, always making sure Catherine felt desired and cherished. And Catherine found herself opening up in ways she never had before, letting herself be vulnerable and honest about her wants and needs. They talked about children sometimes, late at night when they were wrapped in each other's arms. Lucas said he would love to be a father someday, but only when Catherine was ready. She appreciated his patience, wanting to wait until the inn was more established before adding a baby to the mix. The town had fully accepted them as a married couple now. Even Cyrus Morrison seemed to have moved on, though he avoided the inn and glared at Lucas whenever they crossed paths in town. Catherine did not care. She had everything she wanted, and Cyrus's bitterness could not touch her happiness. Christmas of 1882 arrived with cold winds and occasional snow flurries in the mountains. Catherine and Lucas decorated the inn with pine boughs and candles, creating a warm, festive atmosphere for their guests. On Christmas morning, they exchanged simple gifts. Catherine had knitted Lucas a warm scarf and gloves. Lucas had bought Catherine a beautiful cameo brooch that had belonged to his mother. "She would have loved you," Lucas said as he pinned the brooch to Catherine's dress. "She always said I should find a woman who challenged me, who would not just follow along with whatever I said. You would have driven her crazy in the best way." "I wish I could have met her," Catherine said. "And your sister Rebecca. I would have liked to tell her that her brother honored her memory by saving me." "I think she knows," Lucas said softly. "I think she would be happy that something good came from her tragedy." They held each other close, honoring the memory of the sister Lucas had lost and the father Catherine barely spoke to anymore. Walter Grace still lived at the inn, but he kept to himself, drinking in his room and rarely interacting with anyone. Catherine had made peace with their relationship or lack thereof. She had Lucas now, and that was enough. The new year of 1883 brought changes and challenges. A harsh winter made travel difficult, and business at the inn slowed. Money got tight, and Catherine worried about making their loan payments. But Lucas remained optimistic, taking on odd jobs around town to bring in extra money, and Catherine stretched every dollar as far as it would go. "We will get through this," Lucas assured her one particularly cold January night. "Every business has slow seasons. Spring will come, travelers will return, and we will be fine." He was right. As winter gave way to spring, business picked up again. By April, they were back to being fully booked most nights. They made their loan payments on time and even had enough left over to start saving again. It was in early May that Catherine realized she had missed her monthly courses. At first, she thought it was just stress, but when another week passed and still nothing, she began to suspect the truth. She confided in Sarah Thornton, the wife of one of the ranchers Lucas had worked for, who confirmed her suspicions with experienced eyes. "You are with child, dear," Sarah said kindly. "I would wager you are about 6 weeks along, maybe more. How do you feel about it?" Catherine sat down heavily, one hand going to her still flat stomach. "I do not know," she admitted. "We talked about children, but we wanted to wait until we were more established. What if we cannot handle a baby and the inn at the same time?" "You will manage," Sarah said with confidence. "Women have been having babies and running businesses since the beginning of time. You are strong, Catherine, and you have a good husband who will support you. This is a blessing, not a curse." That evening, Catherine told Lucas the news. They were in their room getting ready for bed, and Catherine was so nervous that her hands were shaking. "Lucas, I need to tell you something," she said. He immediately gave her his full attention, concern crossing his face. "What is it?" "Are you all right?" "I am fine," Catherine said. "Better than fine, actually. I am pregnant. We are going to have a baby." Lucas's face went through several expressions in quick succession: surprise, shock, and then pure joy. "A baby," he repeated. "We are going to have a baby." "Yes," Catherine said, starting to smile at his obvious happiness. "I know we said we wanted to wait, and I know the timing is not ideal with the inn and everything, but—" Lucas cut her off by sweeping her into his arms and spinning her around, laughing with delight. "This is wonderful," he said, setting her down gently. "This is the best news you could have given me. I do not care about the timing. We are going to be parents, Catherine. We are going to have a family." Catherine felt her worries melting away in the face of his enthusiasm. "You are really happy about this?" "I am thrilled," Lucas said, kneeling down and pressing a kiss to her stomach. "Hello in there, little one. I am your father and I already love you more than I can say." Catherine laughed, running her fingers through Lucas's hair. "You are going to be an amazing father." "And you will be an amazing mother," Lucas said, standing up and pulling her into a gentle embrace. "We will figure out the logistics. Maybe we can hire someone to help with the inn more, give you time to rest as you get further along, or I can take on more of the work. Whatever you need, Catherine. You and this baby are my priority." The pregnancy was relatively easy. Catherine had some morning sickness in the early months, but it passed quickly. As her belly grew, Lucas became even more attentive, constantly asking if she needed anything, insisting she rest more, and taking on more of the heavy work around the inn. They did hire help, a young woman named Emma who was excellent with guests and a hard worker. This freed up Catherine to focus on the administrative side of running the inn and to rest when she needed to. The baby was due in early January of 1884, and as Catherine's stomach grew round with their child, she found herself falling even more in love with Lucas. He was so excited about becoming a father, so tender with her, so full of plans and dreams for their growing family. They prepared a small room next to theirs as a nursery, and Lucas spent weeks building a beautiful wooden cradle. Catherine sewed tiny clothes and blankets, her heart full of anticipation and love for the baby she had not yet met. On a cold January night, 2 weeks before her due date, Catherine's labor began. It was long and difficult, lasting nearly 20 hours. Lucas stayed by her side the entire time, holding her hand, wiping her brow, encouraging her when she felt like she could not go on. Finally, just after dawn on January 15, 1884, their son was born. He was perfect, with dark hair like his father and lungs that proclaimed his arrival to the entire inn. Catherine held him in her arms, exhausted but overwhelmed with love, and knew that everything she had been through had been worth it to reach this moment. "We have a son," Lucas said, his voice thick with emotion as he looked down at his wife and newborn child. "Catherine, we have a son." "What should we name him?" Catherine asked, stroking the baby's soft cheek. "What about William?" Lucas suggested. "After my father, William Parker." "William Parker," Catherine repeated, testing the name. "I love it. Hello, William. Welcome to the world." Lucas kissed Catherine's forehead, then carefully kissed his son's tiny head. "I love you both so much," he said. "You have given me everything I never knew I wanted, Catherine. A home, a purpose, a family. I am the luckiest man alive." "We are both lucky," Catherine said, leaning into her husband's embrace. "That day you walked into this inn changed my entire life. You saved me, Lucas, in every way a person can be saved." The first years of William's life were busy but joyful. Catherine and Lucas juggled running the inn with raising their son, and somehow they made it work. Emma continued to help with the inn, and Sarah Thornton often stopped by to help with William, having raised 5 children of her own. William was a happy baby who grew into an active toddler. He had his father's gray eyes and his mother's auburn hair, and he was the light of both their lives. Lucas was a devoted father, playing with William whenever he had a free moment, teaching him about horses and cattle even though the boy was far too young to understand. Catherine loved watching them together, her heart full to bursting with the family they had created. Sometimes she thought back to that terrifying day in July of 1882, when she had stood on a platform being auctioned off like property, and she could hardly believe how much her life had changed. In the spring of 1885, Catherine discovered she was pregnant again. This time the news was met with pure joy from both of them, and no anxiety about timing or logistics. They knew they could handle it. They had proven that with William. Their daughter was born in December of 1885, just in time for Christmas. They named her Rebecca Grace, after Lucas's sister and Catherine's middle name. She was tiny and perfect, with her mother's hazel eyes and a temperament that was much calmer than her brother's had been. William, now almost 2 years old, was fascinated by his baby sister and wanted to be involved in everything related to her care. Lucas spent hours teaching him how to be gentle, how to help his mother, how to be a good big brother. The inn continued to thrive. They had paid off their loan by early 1886 and were now fully in profit. They expanded again, adding a small dining room that was open to the public, not just guests. Catherine's cooking became famous in Julian, and the restaurant portion of the business became almost as profitable as the lodging. Walter Grace died in the summer of 1886, his body finally giving out from years of alcohol abuse. Catherine felt sad but not grief-stricken. Her father had made his choices, and she had made peace with their relationship long ago. They buried him in the Julian cemetery with a simple marker, and life went on. By 1888, William was 4 and Rebecca was 2, and Catherine and Lucas had built a life that exceeded both their wildest dreams. The Julian Inn was the most successful business in town. They had 2 beautiful, healthy children, and they had each other, a love that had grown from a desperate rescue into something deep and lasting and true. One evening in August of 1888, exactly 6 years after that fateful auction, Catherine and Lucas sat on their porch watching William chase fireflies while Rebecca slept in her father's arms. "You ever regret it?" Catherine asked, the question she had asked many times over the years. "Spending all that money on a stranger?" "Never," Lucas said, the answer always the same. "Best investment I ever made." Catherine laughed and leaned her head on his shoulder. "I was so scared that day. I thought my life was over. I had no idea it was just beginning." "We both got lucky," Lucas said. "I came to Julian looking for work, and I found a wife, a family, a home, all because I walked into an inn at the right moment. Or the wrong moment, depending on how you look at it," Catherine said with a grin. "If you had come 1 day later, you would have missed the auction." "Then I guess timing really is everything," Lucas said. He shifted Rebecca in his arms and reached out to take Catherine's hand. "I love you, Catherine Parker. Thank you for taking a chance on a stranger with a crazy plan." "I love you too," Catherine said. "And I would take that chance again in a heartbeat. You gave me freedom, and then you gave me love, and then you gave me this beautiful life. How could I regret any of it?" William ran up to the porch, his hands cupped carefully. "Mama, Papa, look." "I caught a firefly." Lucas and Catherine leaned over to see the glowing insect in their son's hands. "Beautiful," Lucas said. "Now let it go so it can fly home to its family." William opened his hands and the firefly took off into the night sky, its light blinking as it rose higher and higher. "Just like that," Catherine said softly, watching the firefly disappear into the darkness. "You set me free, and I flew straight to you." Lucas kissed her temple and Rebecca stirred in his arms, making a sleepy sound. William climbed up onto the porch swing between his parents, and they all sat there together as the stars came out above the California mountains. The years continued to pass in a blur of happiness and hard work. The inn grew and prospered. Their children grew tall and strong, and Catherine and Lucas grew old together, their love deepening with each passing season. In 1890, Catherine gave birth to their 3rd child, another son they named Thomas. In 1893, their 4th and final child was born, a daughter they named Margaret. Their house was full of noise and laughter and love, and both Catherine and Lucas would often stop in the middle of a busy day just to look at each other and marvel at what they had built together. William grew up to be a skilled rancher, taking over the Thornton Ranch when old Mr. Thornton retired. Rebecca became a teacher in Julian, educating the children of miners and ranchers with patience and skill. Thomas followed his father's footsteps into the cattle business, and Margaret eventually took over running the Julian Inn when Catherine and Lucas were ready to step back. But that was years in the future. For now, on this August evening in 1888, 6 years after a desperate woman stood on an auction block and a kind stranger decided to help, Catherine and Lucas sat on their porch with their children and counted their blessings. "You know what I realized today?" Lucas said, breaking the comfortable silence. "What?" Catherine asked. "I spent $3,200 to win your hand in marriage," Lucas said. "And I got so much more than a wife. I got a partner, a best friend, a business partner, the mother of my children, and the love of my life." "That is quite a return on investment," Catherine laughed. "When you put it that way, I think you got a bargain." "The best bargain in history," Lucas agreed. They rocked gently on the porch swing, William chattering about the fireflies, Rebecca sleeping peacefully, and the inn glowing warmly behind them. Tomorrow would bring more guests to serve, more meals to cook, more work to be done. But tonight, they had this moment of perfect peace and contentment. Catherine thought back to that terrified young woman she had been 6 years ago, standing on a platform in the hot July sun, watching men bid on her like she was nothing more than property. She thought about the despair she had felt, the certainty that her life was over before it had really begun. And then she thought about the stranger who had walked into her father's inn, heard her story, and decided to spend his entire life savings to set her free. Not because he wanted something from her, but simply because it was the right thing to do. That act of kindness had changed everything. It had given her freedom, yes, but more than that, it had given her hope. And from that hope had grown love, and from that love had grown this beautiful, chaotic, perfect life. "Thank you," Catherine said softly, squeezing Lucas's hand. "For what?" Lucas asked. "For everything," Catherine said. "For saving me, for loving me, for building this life with me, for being exactly the man I did not know I needed." "Right back at you," Lucas said with a smile. "Well, except for the saving part. You saved yourself, Catherine. I just gave you the opportunity." "We saved each other," Catherine said, and it felt like the truest thing she had ever spoken. "And we are still saving each other, every single day." As the night deepened and the children finally fell asleep, Catherine and Lucas carried them inside to their beds. They tucked William in with his favorite toy horse, and Rebecca in her crib with her cloth doll. Then they retired to their own room, the same room where they had spent their first awkward night as strangers sharing a bed out of necessity. Now it was their sanctuary, the place where they came together at the end of each day to reconnect and remind themselves of what really mattered. They had been married 6 years, had 4 children between them if you counted the 2 babies still to come in the future, and had built a successful business from the ground up. But more than any of that, they had built a love that was real and lasting and true. A love that had started with an act of selfless kindness and had grown into something neither of them could imagine living without. As they lay in bed that night, wrapped in each other's arms, Catherine sent up a silent prayer of thanks to whatever force in the universe had brought Lucas Parker to Julian, California on that July day in 1882. Without him, she would have been trapped in a terrible marriage, her spirit broken, her dreams destroyed. Instead, she was free. Free to love, free to work, free to build the life she wanted. And she had chosen to build that life with Lucas, the cowboy who had outbid every man in town not to own her, but to set her free. That freedom, and the love that had grown from it, was worth more than any amount of money. It was worth everything. And as Catherine drifted off to sleep in her husband's arms, listening to his steady heartbeat beneath her ear, She knew with absolute certainty that she was exactly where she was meant to be, with exactly who she was meant to be with. The auction that was meant to be her doom had instead been her salvation. And the stranger who had saved her had become her home. It was, Catherine thought as sleep finally claimed her, the best possible ending to what had started as the worst possible situation. And she would not change a single moment of it, because every step of the journey had led her here, to this man, to this life, to this love. And that was worth more than all the gold in California.